Hi, everyone. This is Omar Sikander with SecurityGate. I'm excited to announce that I'll be coming out with a series of content for the community, specifically around OT cybersecurity. And today, I'd like to share the approach. My intent as of now is to take a standard or a framework like NIST CSF or 62443 and pick a specific requirement or control and just talk about what the control is, how I've seen it implemented, maybe even recently some of the hiccups that I've heard around deploying, just to see if there's some context that you can learn or gather just from this discussion to maybe help you in improving how that control is deployed, if at all, within your enterprise. So today, I'm just going to flip the page to page 1 of NIST CSF and talk about the very first requirement within the Identify family. It's the Asset Management Control Group, and it's ID.AM-1, right? So physical devices and systems within the organization are inventoried. I guess ID-AM-2 also could fit here because it's talking about software as well as physical devices. Let's consider both of those. And I'll just share that, recently I spoke to a couple of site leads from one of the customers that we have here at SecurityGate. And this customer, they operate 100 chemical or 100 plus chemical manufacturing facilities worldwide. And I spoke to a site lead for a facility in Mexico, one in the Netherlands, one in India, and a couple more, right? And when conducting these assessments on behalf of SecurityGate for this customer, they mentioned that they didn't have any sort of asset inventory, right? And to me, that was somewhat interesting, right? Kind of appalling, because I remember in my career, I've seen kind of two schools of thought around how to conduct this asset inventory. One being the manual way and the snapshot way, where either yourself or your company or your team, or maybe even you hire a consultant or an REM to go out into the facility, physically walk around, clipboard or iPad or some sort of way to record, right? What devices are there, whether they're IT or OT, whether they're networked or islanded, just capturing what asset inventory data you can, right? And if you can log into them and get firmware, patch, version, et cetera, that's even better. But at least knowing the IP address, MAC address, those are the basic elements of an asset inventory. And again, I call it manual because you're walking around, you got a clipboard, you got an iPad, or you hired somebody to go do that for you. And it's a snapshot in time in the sense that once you close the door behind you and you exit that facility, your data is as old as it was when you got it, right? Now, the other approach is to add a solution or a piece of technology that can perform that asset inventory somewhat digitally, right? So either actively by pinging, poking, or prodding some of the devices on the network, or maybe through examining a packet capture from a switch, right? To establish some sort of asset inventory and gather similar type of information based off of the metadata that device is reporting when it communicates on the network. And that's a little better in the sense that, you can open up that solution or that tool and see that asset inventory dynamically. But sometimes, that solution or tool might not have the capability to go as deep or access some of the islanded areas of your facility or your operations. So, either one is good or great, pros and cons to each, but if you couple them both, you get the best vantage point, right? By doing both an annual asset inventory and comparing that against what you're getting from your solution or tool. Now, going back to this customer, the reason why these site leads primarily gave for not having asset inventory implemented was just lack of budget, right? Priority and time were also key reasons, but these are the basic tenets of what we've seen for other controls as well. And specifically to budget, I wanted to offer some guidance based off of what's worked in my career, right? I've got about 10 years experience in OT, specifically ICS. And when helping or championing some of my previous customers into securing funds to perform an asset inventory, what's worked for us in the past has been to really position the net positive business outcomes to cater more towards the COO side of the tree rather than the CIO or CISO side of the tree. Not to say that they don't have budget, right? The CISO and the CIO. It's just that when you engage IT and you're representing maybe the plant as an I&E supervisor, a maintenance tech, maybe even the plant manager, it's probably more challenging to take funds from a different department than it is your own. So if you can position the benefits such as, hey, wouldn't it be great if I had, either a manual asset inventory and or my dynamic asset inventory, I'd know everything I have in my facility. And if I know everything I have, right, I can understand who's doing what, when, and where, or what devices are doing what, when, or where, and when my system integrators come in, what they're doing on the network, and if they're accessing the correct device or system. That's typically classified in my mind as process integrity, right? The who, what, when, where. On top of that, what if I could use my asset inventory tool or my snapshot to create some sort of lifecycle management program? I know I've got a legacy and a disparate installed base with a lot of different vendors, things that are 20 years old, things that are 5 days old. What if I could figure out when things need to be replaced, right? And have a plan for when to replace them now that I know what I've got in the plan. And then from a disaster recovery standpoint, what if I knew, what patches and what firmware revs I had on my devices, and I kept the consistent backups to make sure that, what I had in backup matched what was already implemented. So these are some positive business outcomes or desirable OT outcomes that you could benefit from conducting an asset inventory, either service or having a tool for it. And then, of course, underneath all that is maximizing my cybersecurity posture. So that's all I've got for today, just to give you some ideas on how you might be able to, during your next budgeting cycle, convince somebody to release some funds to allow you to get a better perspective and a better handle on the first two things that NIST CSF recommends, which is having a physical and a software-based inventory of your devices and technologies. So with that, this is Omar Sikander with SecurityGate signing off. See you next time.